Tamsen, I don't know about you, but this is the hardest one. Identity loss.
Yeah.
And I hear this all the time. I don't know who I am anymore.
Yep.
I can't remember things. I'm moody. I just feel like I'm not myself. This is the biggest problem I see. This is why people come to see me.
There's no question. I've heard it so many times. Like, I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't feel like who I used to be, and I want to get back to who I used to be. And I think it's difficult going through it. I'm sure it's difficult hearing it all the time, but it is a really big part of this, because it's not, I don't think it's just the physical part. It really is a mental, emotional part, and it's where we're going next. Like, I don't know if we all prepared for this, like, next big long chapter that's ahead.
I think a part of it is that along the way, we figure out that, okay, our identity is this doer. We do for others. We take care of others. We work hard. Or, I can dance. I can do yoga. I can do all these things. And when it seems like you can't do those things as well, it hits you.
Yeah.
That, along with the hormonal fluctuations and all the other gifts of menopause, it all hits you at once, and you don't feel prepared. So you feel like, I guess I don't know who I am.
Right.
But that's a negative automatic thought. And we want to challenge that and push back on it, because you are who you are. You're
right.
All these great things. You just can't think about them now that you're dysregulated.
Well, and also job goes into that, right? A lot of people sit in that same position all the time, and they think they are their seat, right? They are the chair that they're in. They are the position or the title. And then if that changes or shifts, or they decide to step away from it, or they lose it, whatever the reason, they don't know who they are anymore. I think more than anything, I've seen people that really grow from one place to another place, being honest about what their passions are, what they want to do, and what brings them real joy, and actually experience it versus have that list, that perfect resume, that perfect mom, that perfect person in the world.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of radical acceptance. And one of the tools in dialectical behavioral therapy is to accept what's happening. I think a lot of women don't prepare for menopause because they're in denial.
Sure.
And that's healthy. That's normal, right? That's typical.
Sure.
We deny things that we don't want to think about because there's a million things to worry
Someday.
about. One day it'll happen. I'll worry about it when it comes.
Yep.
But I think that's a mistake. And I think that leads to that feeling of, I don't know who I am. The rug is pulled out from under me. So we talk about radical acceptance in practice, right? Changes are happening to my body. I am still the same person.
Yeah. It can be a hard one,
It's
though,
very
right?
hard.
It's really hard. And I always think you have to find something else that you do well. And it doesn't mean you have to replace everything, but I've noticed, even for me, going to the gym, and I've talked to a lot of women, like the things that worked before don't work for them now, right? They can't run as hard as they used to. They can't lift as hard as they used to. They don't have the energy to do whatever it is they want to do. I have found that what I do is replace a lot of the things I did maybe when I was in my 20s, and I felt more confident than ever in my ability, because I was able to accept what I'm doing now and actually excel at that part of it. And I think that's it's a big deal.
It is. And I think you probably practice mindfulness a lot.
Try.
And we talked about it earlier. If you can just sit still and focus on one thing and ground yourself, then you can pick and choose the thoughts and the feelings that you're going to give the most attention to.
Yeah.
So if you can pick and choose that, okay, I'm accepting that this is happening to my body, and I also, the big
yes,
and I also know that I am who I am, that I still can do very many things, that I'm experienced, that I'm accomplished, you name it, whatever that name is, that list is for you. But two things can be true. My body is going through changes, and I am who I am.
Yeah, I'm not my changes.
Right.
And I always hesitate when people are like, I'm menopausal. Like, labeling yourself with something like that puts you in your mind. I think a lot of people in this category of like invisible, not as strong as I used to be, not as XYZ as I used to be, not able to thrive. And that's not the case. I've also noticed with social media, because social media, you're scrolling, right? You look at a 20-year-old and, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, and so your process of like comparison is just very different than it used to be. You used to have your circle of friends. That's who you're around. You're all going through things around, kind of the same time, maybe the same age. And I think that we compare in so many different ways, and it makes it even more difficult for us to have an identity crisis in a lot of ways.
It's an unhealthy relationship with media. It's unhealthy. So it's a detox we have to do. Sometimes we have to detox from unhealthy habits like that, like drinking too much, smoking too much, unhealthy relationships with digital media, and also toxic people.
Yeah. People's a big one, isn't it's funny you say that, because it was about a year ago that I had to just kind of break up with a friend. We were different places, and we weren't I felt I was always having to prove myself, like, please like me, please lift me up, please, is this good? Is this good? And it was a terrible it was a terrible relationship. And I thought, but this is a person that I've known all these years. Like, how can this be a stage where that person wouldn't be in my life? But I realized what I was doing to my head. And I think that this is a time that you have to take inventory of who's around you.
You definitely need supportive people around you, because toxic people increase your stress level, and that worsens everything. We talked about the ties, T.I.E.S, between mental health and menopause. We talked about thinking or cognitive changes like brain fog, identity crises, emotional dysregulation, and sleep. Let us know what you think and what would you like for us to cover next. We did a lot of tips, but we have much more for you.